This is the Marketing Podcast Network.
Welcome to Uncorking a Story, the podcast that introduces you to the rich world of storytellers who share their personal journeys, creative processes, and the stories behind their stories, one conversation at a time. I'm your host, Mike Carlon, and I'm thrilled to be part of your writing journey. If you're an aspiring writer, a literary enthusiast, or simply someone who believes in the transformative power of words, you've come to the right place. Every week, we'll pop the cork on the world of successful storytellers and give you a healthy pour of inspiration, insight, and empowerment. My mission is to help writers like you realize your full potential through the transformative and therapeutic power of writing. Whether you're just starting your literary voyage or looking to refine your craft, I'm here to provide you with the knowledge, inspiration, and encouragement you need to embark on your own storytelling adventure. So, are you ready to uncork your story and let your creativity flow? Uncorking a Story is about to begin. Sit back, relax, and let the transformative magic of storytelling whisk you away. Welcome to Uncorking a Story. Mary Keliikoa is an award-nominated author who joins me today on Uncorking a Story to discuss her career and latest novel, Don't Ask, Don't Follow. Welcome to Uncorking a Story, Mary.
Hi, Mike. Lovely to be here.
I am excited to have you here, Mary, and I'm curious, where does your story as an author begin?
Gosh, well, let's start. Well, I guess really where I started writing, and I was a late bloomer in writing. I started at 27. That's when I wrote my very first novel. I actually wrote it with a girlfriend who was working next in the cubicle next to mine. And during our lunch hours, we would pen a novel together, which went nowhere. And then I went on to write 3 more novels. And when I was 35, I opened a business with my husband. And so I set all of my writing dreams aside. And I picked it back up after I turned 50. And the novel that I had written back in 1999, I picked that book up and it became my debut in 2020. So I debuted at the age of 55 and my 6th book just came out this year. So I've been on a roll.
Very cool. Now, was that book, the first one, was that the one you co-wrote with somebody else in the cubicle?
No, it was the 4th book I'd written, but right before I kind of laid down all the writing and went on to open a company with my husband. So
very cool. So let's go back to that time though, when you were co-writing that book on your lunch break with that coworker. What industry were you working in, and kind of why at that time did you decide, hey, this is something you might want to try your hat at?
yeah, so I was 27. I was working as a legal secretary. I started writing or working in the legal field when I was 17. I actually worked for my home ec teacher's husband who did bankruptcy law. And after class, I would go into Portland and type up bankruptcy petitions. That's how I started in the legal field. And so 10 years later, I am still in the legal field. And I recently married. I have 2 stepdaughters. We're barely making the mortgage. And hey, this idea of writing a book and becoming a famous author, really was appealing to help pay those bills. Yeah, it didn't transpire at all. But life got easier as I got a little older, and obviously we got to a place that we could open a company. My husband and I both left our jobs and moved on. But that was really what kind of started my whole idea of hey, I'm going to write a book and maybe it'll sell and maybe I can help pay the mortgage. That was really the beginning.
When you were younger, even before 27, had you ever given any thought to writing a book? I mean, or was this really something that you just came to started in your late 20s?
Yeah, it really just came in my late 20s. So I was a classically trained organist, pianist. I played the oboe in the band, all this. So I was kind of more into the music. So if I was writing anything, it was my own songs type of thing on the organ or the piano. But I was a big reader. I loved Mary Higgins Clark and Jay Jance and Faye Kellerman. And of course, I was in the legal field. So I was, had a great bird's eye view of all the legal maneuverings. And so when it came time to write a book, I really was doing it because my friend wanted to write it. And I thought, well, what the heck? We're not doing anything during our lunch hours. So why not? And because of the money stuff. And so, that really was the beginning. But once I got the bug, that was it. I was I was a writer. I found out I was a writer. That's what I wanted to do.
They do say once the bug bites you, you live with the sting.
This
Uh,
is true.
and that sounds like it was true for you. I'm curious, I know that first book, didn't wind up seeing the light of day, but I'm curious, what were some of the big lessons you learned about yourself as a writer by going through that, that first process with that first book?
I think really that I could do it. I mean, it's a very daunting task when you think of 300 plus pages that you hope will make some sort of sense. And so I think just having some confirmation that I really could do this on some level. Now, I have had a lot to learn and I'm continuously learning. But at least I knew I could do it at that point. And that gave me enough engine to get the second book done and the next book and the next one and all that have followed. So, yeah.
Take me back to that time when you first got informed, when you first learned that you would be a published author. What was that feeling like?
Well, there were lots of screams in the house, running back and forth, that sort of thing. It was like it's in steps, right? You get the agent first, and that's the big celebration. And then you get the book deal, and that's, an even bigger celebration because now the dream that you've been working towards is happening. And it was really just surreal in a lot of ways, especially because as I've gotten older, for a little bit, I was thinking it's never going to happen. I got really tied up in our company, which turned out to be quite successful. It was great. I was managing 38 employees. We just sold last year, so I am officially retired now. But it was I had all this success, but it just didn't measure to what this childhood, or late 20 dream of wanting to be a published author. So it was very personal. This was a very personal goal.
Yeah.
So,
So what can you share with us about Don't Ask, Don't Follow?
well, it's the first book that I put inside a law firm, which I thought was a lot of fun because I've written, police procedural type, small town sheriff, and I've written female PI, but I've never put the story directly into a law firm. And so, and this one was also really personal. It was about sisters and what one would do for the other. And, as one is, what will we cover for if our sibling is doing something they shouldn't be doing, or that we're afraid that they've done. And that's really the question that gets asked: how far do we go for our family? It was very personal on some levels because I had a brother I was always covering for. A lot of people ask, was it a sister? I'm like, no, it was a brother. He was older and he was always in trouble. And I lost him at 30 to his addictions. And so I think there was a lot of personal stuff that came into this book, like how far do you go to save somebody? Even though in this case, the saving is because we think she's committed a crime. So that's kind of the basis of Don't Ask, Don't Follow.
Yeah, so you're kind of writing from a place of experience, having worked in the legal profession, and of
Mhm.
course, you shared, and I thank you for doing that. The little bit of background about your brother and how his experiences may have inspired part of the story, and it just leads me to think, or just reminds me, I should say, that even when writing fiction, there is a fair amount of ourselves that we're putting on the page, right? There is a fair amount of personal, I guess maybe I want to say personality. I don't know. I don't even know what the right word is, but there is truth in fiction, I believe.
Oh, I think so. Especially in the characters, because, we can create people out of thin air, but to really resonate with a character and bring them to life, I think you have to find that relatability. And if you can find it yourself in the character you're writing, I think that goes off the page and reaches out to the reader that you're trying to touch. So yeah, I think we do. I think on some level we're always trying to heal ourselves, whether it's through fiction or not. Or we take a topic that we want to learn about. I think it's just all very personal, even though we say, oh no, I just pump this stuff out or whatever. Yeah, no, there's always a little bit of piece of the author in each book, I think.
Yeah, but of course it can't be too overt. You don't want
Yeah.
people knowing like all the intimate details. And I've certainly had those experiences where people have read something that I've written and they'd be like, "Hey, dude, is everything okay in your life?" I'm like, "Why do you ask?" They're like, "Well, this seems like I could hear your voice when I'm reading this and I'm like, well, thank you. I appreciate that compliment. But no, this is still a fictional story. It's like,
Absolutely. I just finished a draft on a vigilante justice person. And I'm like, yeah, no, I have no desire to go kill anybody, but, but I can see her motivations and that, I can kind of connect to that. So I think that's
it, it does make me wonder, though. It's like if somebody got into our browser histories, what would they assume to be true about us?
Oh, everybody in my family knows to go, like go delete the history because if anything happens to me, that's fun.
Oh, that's funny. So, do you have a process that you follow when you're writing? Are you a plotter? Do you do an outline? How do you tend to write?
Well, it is ever changing. That is one thing that is kind of my process right now. So I have always been a pantser. I've been one of those people that get an idea and I'll sit down and I'll write, you write about a page of like a back jacket type blurb about it. So I have a general idea and sometimes I'll have the pitch. Sometimes that comes later, but usually I kind of know. But then I sit down and I just start writing. And that has always worked for me fairly well. I can write a book in about 6 months, front, back, and have it edited and out the door, like ready to go. But this latest book I wrote, I actually plotted the whole book. I spent 7 weeks wanting to pull my hair out, wanted to burn it a few times because it was such something I'd never done, right? I'd never really plotted a book. I wrote this last book in 7 weeks. It went that fast after. So it was 7 weeks of planning and 7 weeks at the computer of actually writing. And I'm kind of moving into the plotter section a little bit. So I don't know what's going to happen. But now, in that fairness, my outline was almost 50 pages. So I was really accessing that pantser part of my brain as I was, writing the plot out. But I kind of like both. But that is my process right now. So we'll see what happens for the next book. But
What encouraged you to make a change for this latest one?
well, I've been working with an editor that I've really trusted, and she encouraged me to try it. And like I said, there were several days that I was about to write her back and say, "Yeah, this is impossible. This is not how I work." And up until this book, I would have held really strong on that line. Like, this is not how I work. This is not. I can't do this. But I found out I could if I give myself a little bit of grace and breathing room. And I really think it made a difference for the writing process for me. So I'm going to try it again, I think. So.
Was there a part of you that may have been nervous to plot it out and outline it, because you feel like you're putting yourself in handcuffs? Did that fear ever creep into your mind?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's part of it. I think my part of my personality is also that I'm not a huge planner. I go with the idea and let's go and check it out and see what happens. I don't like everything kind of like in a cookie cutter type of way. I like to be surprised. I want that excitement. I want to think about it while I'm laying in bed and jump out of the bed at 5 o'clock to go write because, hey, I'm excited for this idea that came in through the night. But I found that I can also, there's flexibility in this. There were several things as I got to the end, one plot line did not work and I threw it out. And I just had to reorganize towards the end. And so I think that gave me a little bit of confidence going forward. It doesn't have to be a handcuff.
Yeah,
So,
there's still room to make a left turn if you needed to make a left turn instead of a right, it sounds like.
yeah, because once you're really in the process of writing, not everything is going to quite turn out the way you think it is. And really at the end of the day, I started feeling like I was transcribing this story. Like it was coming in, I was just typing, and it's like, yeah, that part just isn't going to work here. Sorry, that needs to go. So the character's like, yeah, no, we're slowing the book down. Take it out right now. So,
Do you ever get the sense that this is going to be a little bit more of a woo woo type question, but I'm always curious. Do you ever get the sense or the feeling that the story is coming through you, but it's not coming from you? If that makes any sense.
oh, very often. Yeah, I call it being in the zone or getting in the flow. And I think that is so apparent when I sit down at the computer at 6 o'clock in the morning and my husband comes home from working out at the club at 9:30 or 10. And I'm be like, didn't you just leave? Like, weren't you, you're back already? Like, it's like, so I think that's kind of when you're just in a place where you're just receiving the information and it's just going. So,
Yeah, it's like, do you have any tips for how to get into that state? Because it's something that I experience from time to time, and then I'm in my head. Then there were other times where I'm just in my head, and I guess I am also at a phase where I'm still doing the whole 9 to 5 thing. So it's like I do have like 100 other things like kind of swirling around up here. But I'm just curious if you, and even for other authors, if you have advice for how to hit flow.
oh, that's a good question. I mean, I guess part of it is getting out of your own way, and just starting. Like, so I think best with my fingers moving. I think that comes from my piano and my organ days. I just do it without even thinking. Really, my brain just knows where to go, and I think that's what has kind of translated into my writing to a certain degree. So I just start, and I think dialogue is a great way to start it, because if you can hear a conversation in your head and you just kind of get into the back and forth of the situation, it almost starts to take off on its own. That's what I have found. And I think I do put quite a bit of dialogue in my books. I love those conversations. I think it's a great way to get information without getting too far into the character's head and then weighing it down with suppositions. And, so you just get the characters talking to each other. And I think that is how I have found that I start feeling like I'm moving into the story and it's starting to take off all by itself.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I am still floored by that, admission of writing it in 7 weeks. Like to me, that is like
I've
it's
I've never done it before. I've never, yeah. I know everybody was like, "That's amazing." I'm like, "Yeah, I don't know. This was a story." Well, and I will say this particular story I just wrote, it's been sitting in my head for a couple of years. So it's been something I wanted to write. I was told I might not be the person to write it. Just tell me no, and that's all it takes. And then I figure out something. Yes, that is how I've always run my life. You tell me no, yeah, you can just be rest assured it will happen. I'm going to do it.
who suggested that to you? Who planted that seed that you might not be the person to write the story?
Previous agent.
Mm.
Yeah.
Emphasis on the previous, perhaps.
Yeah, we won't go there. But
Oh,
yes,
no
I
need
think
to go there.
you need to have people who support your dreams.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Very cool. Very cool. I'm looking over your shoulder and I'm seeing a pineapple. I'm curious if is there a story behind that pineapple?
Well, my husband's nickname is Pineapple. He's Hawaiian. And I don't know, I got it as a card and I thought it was beautiful. So I put it in. And of course, the husband is right there. So, my pineapple on both sides.
Very cool. Well, one of the ways I like to get to know my guests a little bit more is through some pop culture questions. So I'm curious, Mary, when you were growing up, I always like to root this one in childhood, but did you have anything that you enjoyed watching on TV, or did you have a favorite movie from childhood that you remember?
Oh, well, I was big on Adam 12 and Emergency. So I was a kid of the late 60s, early 70s. So those were my things. I even wrote a fan letter to Kevin Ty on Emergency.
I,
Mom, I'm 6. And I'm like, Mom, please, can I write? I just like this guy so much. She's like, okay.
It's so funny. Emergency is one of my favorite TV shows, and I watched it with my kids. They had it on reruns on one of the local stations or whatever, and I was infatuated with Randolph Mantooth. Like I don't know, his look. Like I thought he was the coolest guy when I was
Mhm.
a kid, and I was rewatching the movie Roadhouse with Patrick Swayze. I know a couple years ago, and I noticed Kevin Ty is in that movie. Like he is one of the baddies in that movie, and it's like he looked. I mean, he looked exactly the same. And I think I saw him on an episode of Law and Order, like
Oh,
SVU or something, at rerun like years ago. But
isn't that funny? Yeah. My attraction to law and justice and police, it's been long standing. And so it's no wonder I write murder mystery, right? Because I was into it at 5 years old. So yeah, those were my big things.
how about music? What did you like listening to when you were a kid?
I don't know. Like I said, I was classically trained on the organ, and my parents were older parents. And so anytime I was in the car, they were listening to classical music or, you know, things that you would say easy jazz now, that's those types of songs. So I really don't remember what I liked, to be honest. I was always playing Hungarian Rhapsody on the organ, or I was listening to something, in the car that was specific to that. So I don't really recall.
Yeah, my parents were older as well, and my mother she was a classically trained pianist, and she was always all about classical music. Although she went through a big Anne Murray phase at one point in time on our road trips. We would go from Connecticut to Florida every year, and there was a lot of Anne Murray. And my dad was all about like 1940s big band music,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
which
I
was
would say as I got older, I love R&B music, Earth, Wind and Fire, all that. And then now I kind of gravitate towards country music. So
yeah.
country girl.
Yeah, I love some good country music. It's
Yeah.
and we used to listen to it a lot with the kids when they were younger because it was like, it wasn't like the sort of gangster rap that was popular, 20 years ago when they were babies, and it wasn't like the hard and heavy metal music that I loved. So we like our kids grew up on country music and had a lot of fun listening to it over the years. It's very
Yeah.
cool. I'm curious if you could go back in time and whisper some words of advice into your younger self's ear. Maybe it's that, Mary, who's 27, co-writing a book at lunch. What would you tell your younger self?
What would I tell my younger self? That it's all going to work out. Try not to get too wrapped up into I think we all have these plans and we get really tied to think how we think we're going to have them transpire for us. But I think if you can just kind of let it go and, yeah, for me, I always thought that writing was going to be the big thing of my life. It turned out opening companies were really what created the success in my life. But it's given me so much freedom to come back and pursue my writing without all the pressure. It doesn't, I don't have to do it to pay the bills any longer. And I think that's been a huge gift, which I could not have foreseen. So I think, trying not to put so much pressure onto everything. I'm sure that's probably why I probably stalled myself out at 27, just because of the desperation around it. So I think that I would say that, patience, grasshopper.
There you go. That nice, what was that, Kung Fu reference?
Kung Fu, yeah.
There you go. David Carradine.
Love that show too.
Yeah, it was a good one. It was a good one. And then lastly, if people want to learn more about you, Mary, where can they go? Do you have a website? Do you have any social media that you're active on?
Yeah, marykeliikoa.com is my website. That's always how to check out what I'm doing and all that. And then, of course, I'm on all the social media channels, but you can click it from there. So,
all right. Very cool. I'll be sure to put a link to your website and your socials in our show notes so people can easily find you if they are so inclined. And Mary, I'll say thank you so much for stopping by Uncorking a Story and letting me uncork yours.
Thank you, Mike. Aloha.
Thanks for listening to Uncorking a Story. If you'd like more information about today's guest or to find out more about Mike, go to uncorkingastory.com. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, rate, and review us at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Tune in every week to hear Mike Carlon uncork a new story.